Hey, I'm Mike Kulas,
I'm Luke Schneider,
and over there, or
I'm
maybe
Matt
over
Toshlock.
there.
or down here.
Sorry, I was talking over you.
I'm still Matt Toshlock.
All right, we got Matt Toshlock in here. It took us an hour and a half to set this up. It's going to be really good.
Let's go. So,
No lead indicator.
no, there's not going to be a lead indicator at all. This is not a free space like
Yeah.
game. It's not a space sim. But in terms of augmented reality for VR version, probably something like that. For the 2D version, it's just going to be a reticle on the screen. It'll maybe have a little bit of animation, but not too much.
And it will it indicate what weapon you're firing?
Maybe a little bit.
I mean, you don't want to
It's not
accidentally fire your Devastator.
Yeah.
You're probably
definitely
looking
for
at the middle of
missiles.
the screen, but not necessarily the lower left corner.
The missiles
Yeah, I
will
think
be a little
we
more
should have some indication of what's the next weapon to fire or whatever.
Yeah. For primary weapons, it's not as important. It's pretty obvious what you have. Vulkan API is a graphics technology that's coming out. If Unity supports it, we'll support it. Simple as that. Definitely good old games and Steam. Beyond that, I'm not sure. Probably Humble Store too.
Yeah.
They have a good store.
Didn't? And we committed to DRM free too, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, good old games and Home Store.
Yeah,
Oh,
GOG
okay,
would
that's
be
right.
good old
That's
DRM free.
But we like Humble Store. We use them for distribution of the keys for Inferno 2, and we'll probably use them for distribution of other keys. So, yeah, we'll probably do their store as well.
You go, Matt.
I mean, I think it's intense action. I think I think we're trying to get the same feel we had in Descent 2, where you have just really intense combat, a little bit of exploration, but mostly a lot of fighting.
I'd also add a 6 degree of freedom movement and action alongside that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's an action game, but I think the 6 degree of freedom stuff, just the way as you get good and you're using all of the axes, that's what makes it different. That's what makes it special, and it's just the way the gameplay flows around how the player can move.
Yeah.
It's trivial. We just yeah, it's trivial, isn't it? You just die and we don't have save games. No, but obviously you have to balance the game around that. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Could you do it in Descent too?
Not on Insane at all.
On
But on
Easy?
Hotshot, yeah.
Hot shot? Really? One life? Wow. How about you, Matt?
Probably. Not anymore.
No.
Back in the day.
Maybe on easy I could, yeah.
I don't know if I would have gotten, other than, I could maybe on easy, but I would die due to a reactor blow up probably at least once, not getting out. But yeah, I think that'd be fun. We should do that. It's not terribly difficult except for balancing the whole game around a new metric. That's not my problem.
That's the designer's problem, you're saying, Mike?
Yeah. I'll be done by then. I'll just, I'll come in once for an hour and say, are you done yet? No, well, programming's done. I'm not going to design.
It was really important to us to have the game pretty far along before we launched the Kickstarter. We didn't want the Kickstarter to be about some speculative idea of what we wanted to do. We wanted to have a really good prototype that we could show off in the Kickstarter video and say, this is what the game's going to be. So we'd worked on the game for a year and a half before we even started the Kickstarter. So it wasn't a big leap for us to actually release the demo. We were pretty far along, and we knew that the demo was good even before we started the Kickstarter.
But we hadn't made up our minds to release a demo until after we started it. We knew we could, but we didn't really have in mind what we were going to release. And definitely, from my perspective, it got a lot more people playing it for a lot of hours, which I presume was primarily challenge mode after the first hour or so, and that was very gratifying to see.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have robot generators. They're not going to be exactly the same as they worked in Descent 1 or 2 or 3. But there will be something that generates robots, and you probably be able to blow them up instead of having them just create a certain number and then stop. But that will depend on how the gameplay goes and just how balanced it feels.
But will they be purple?
I do not know. That's up to Chris.
I don't know yet.
Will the robots come out and sort of like grow?
Hopefully, yeah, that'd be.
Yeah.
We can definitely do some cool
Materialize
effects these
somehow.
days, and
That's gotta be cool.
yeah.
It's gotta be cool.
We can do more. I think all we did was, I think it was just like an expanding sphere and everything within the sphere was rendered. Is that how that worked?
I don't remember. I thought maybe it was just a big cloud of sparks and you couldn't see anything happen.
No,
and
it was geometry.
geometry came
Yeah,
in.
and
Was
we
it?
had to make them invulnerable then, because after all, they couldn't attack you. So they were invulnerable until they were fully formed. Or
Right.
yeah, I think that's how it worked. Anyway, it doesn't matter how it worked. We're gonna do something better. Yes, we'll have them.
That'd be cool.
Well, the thief bot was definitely an enemy. We haven't made up our minds about a guide bot or even anything like that. To me, the runaway bots in challenge mode, which you knew were going to drop something good, they're not really that hostile. They never go after you to fire at you, but they will fire at you if they happen to see you while they're just zooming around the mine. So to me, they're almost like a resource to be harvested. You can ignore them and they'll hardly ever hurt you. But if you go after them, you get something good out of it. So we haven't really talked about this too much. I would think doing other stuff like that is pretty interesting, easy to do. GuideBot is interesting and not as easy to do. So we haven't really come to a conclusion on that. Or have you? Is there a document I'm not aware
No,
of?
I haven't
Oh, okay.
come to any conclusion on friendly bots.
It would be really interesting to have non-hostile bots that might be helping you out a little bit, shooting at the enemies or something. I mean, you wouldn't want them to be massively powerful, but it'd be kind of an interesting little twist.
Yeah, they'd just be a little drone, but that's a wish list item for sure.
Yeah.
Which some wish list items do get in the game, but not very many.
Most of them get considered for a sequel.
The top of my wish list is get the game done.
Yeah, that's not a wish.
So we're wishing for that more than anything else. A lot.
Well, every robot type has like slightly different AI in some way. Some are more drastically different than others, so I think they have a lot of personality in terms of how they react to combat and stuff like that. And we hope to add even a little bit more variety and little characteristics about them. So that's just sort of a polish item in terms of getting more personality and variety in the robots. But already we have prototypes of almost all the robots except for the bosses, and they all work pretty well.
Some of the personality comes out of it's emergent, I guess. Like when we were working on that, I forget which one it was, but anyway, when he would come around a pillar and you would be entering his field of view, he would like abruptly turn at you, and I thought it made him look kind of like unaware, and then like overreacting, which is different than a lot of bots that kind of move around at a more predictable speed and turn in a predictable way. This guy, it's like, oh my god, he turns around the corner and he sees the player there. So that wasn't planned, but just by the values on, in that case, the turn rate, it sort of gave him personality.
So, Mike, you've got a sort of set of AI parameters that we can adjust for each robot. How much do you think you'll end up doing specific AI for particular robots, aside from the bosses? I know who will have that.
There's more. There's been a fair amount of that, and there will be more. So really, I would say what we have is a foundation of like pathfinding and how far am I from this segment as I can fly. Not as not in a straight line through walls and stuff. So we have a pretty decent tool set of things that the designer or programmer can use to string together behavior. But I think we are going more and more custom behavior for a lot of the robots, certainly than we did in Descent.
Yeah, we already have a bunch of custom code for different robot types, and then there's about 7 robot types that share a lot of stuff, and we'll probably be doing a little bit more to differentiate the different versions of those, because we have some different behaviors that they do when they're in the combat mode, and we just want to make those a little bit more unique for each robot type.
I think it's one of those things where, time permitting, we can go in and add little specific features for each robot in our copious extra time at the end of the project. We haven't looked into that yet, and we'll look into it, and if it makes sense for overload, then we may consider that. But it's not something we're really focused on basic gameplay elements right now and getting all that stuff put together so we can start creating real content. And that's one of those things we'll look at later.
We actually have ship bobbing now, it's just not very strong. And it does a little bit of side-to-side motion and mostly up and down. But we might be tweaking it a little bit, but we're not going to have too strong of a motion there because it just makes some people feel nauseous. And it's really just there to make it feel like you're floating in a ship instead of just in a totally sterile game environment.
Otherwise, we wouldn't know if the game were locked up.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I mean,
And it can move you into lava, can't it? You'd have to be very close to begin with.
you would have to be really close.
What about VR? Is it bad for VR?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, it's
you're
too
still
so
in a ship.
subtle.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very subtle now. We might make it a little bit stronger, but it's not.
Have a slider.
Yeah.
We might have a slider. That's possible.
You change it on your friend's computer.
Yeah. How sick do you want to be?
That's right.
Jerry is definitely planning to write a song.
That's right.
I'm going to write 1 or 2 songs, and then Alistair and Dan are doing the majority of the music. And then there will be lots of different little level element variations, and there will be a reactor on many of the levels, but not every level will have a reactor, and some of them will have mini reactors instead of one big reactor or something like that. So, yeah.
And then there'll be, of course, visual differences between the levels too. So
Yeah, significant visual differences.
there'll be different sections of the game that kind of look different, and then location to location, based on what the location is, will have different visual style too. So I think you'll get a really good indication from that.
And just the weapons you'll be using throughout the game will change significantly because you'll be upgrading them, you'll be getting new weapons, and there's some new surprises that we haven't talked about yet. So, yeah, there'll be lots of cool stuff throughout the game. And the plot is very good too, I think. We have a cool story.
Yeah, I think the story is coming along great.
And that'll help drive you forward and sort of give a little more interest, and you'll want to see what happens. And it's not terribly tied to the gameplay, it's not a moment to moment oh, I did this and that affected the story, but I think the overall plot is really cool. Some of them will drop specific types of weapons or ammo, like missiles, especially if a robot fires a missile, they'll usually drop that kind of missile. But there will be some randomness as well, and there might be even a little bit of, based on what the player needs, they'll drop a specific thing. But that system is still to be designed, and we'll see how it goes. But the bot type will affect what it can drop. Well, I think Descent 3's, they just had so many different types of netcode that I'm not sure which one was the best to use, and I think people weren't sure which one was the best to use. And
Oh, there
depends
was
there
peer
was
to peer
peer-to-peer,
and client
there's
server.
client server, there were dedicated servers. There were so many different
Modem.
kinds of multiplayer and different modes you could play that, and also we focused a lot on 16 player, but I think that's actually not as crucial to the game. So I think the multiplayer code will be great because it has to be. So if it's not, then we got to keep fixing it until it is.
And it's not part of our original release. That always helps.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll be able to spend time specifically on multiplayer for quite a while. There will be fluids, including lava, and if you're making lava, then at some point the system can be expanded to include
Blue
something.
lava.
Blue lava.
It doesn't hurt.
But by the same time, we're definitely not going into any liquids underneath them, because that is an enormous amount of work with all the bubbles and changing how
Bubbles.
the rendering works. And just the changing the physics,
We didn't bother with that in Descent.
changing the effects, and
How
But
about
yeah, well,
flying
in
through a
Descent-
waterfall?
flying through a waterfall. That's also not one of my favorite things, but we'll see. There'll be new weapons, new bots, new levels.
Yes, and I don't think we're not gonna include anything that closely resembles what would be part of the, the regular single-player campaign.
I would amend that with, it might be part of a section of a level towards the middle
Yeah,
of the game.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
think
not a
part of
full
what we're
level.
doing in this demo is trying to figure out what our level should be like. So this is sort of an R&D kind of level that we'll make and put out there and play for a while and see what people think of, and that'll influence the direction of the final levels, but this will not be a final level. I think it's possible that maybe the challenge levels we put out in this demo could be in the final.
Yeah.
Unless people don't like it, because it is a
Yeah.
little bit, it's going to be a bit different than our other levels. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
And we should have the auto map in
Yay.
this level, in this demo. In fact, I'd be finishing it now if I weren't doing this video.
That means that our levels will be much more complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be a lot of new weapons and a lot of new robots because we're focused on more getting everything working on a broad level, but the new weapons and even the old weapons that you see will have new effects.
There were quite a few weapons in the first teaser.
Yeah, there were 9 weapons. So you might not see some of the weapons that were in the teaser in the demo.
But we've got a lot of new stuff to show, so we can
We
definitely
do.
pick it's not going to be a large set, but we'll pick a nice set of new stuff. And
We have to do another teaser after this one. We can't put too much in this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then at some point we release the beta, of course, which is going to
Yeah.
have all the content that's ready at some point.
So the dying stuff will not be the same as Descent. We're not going to have lives. You're not going to we might have a score still, but we're not going to have lives. And you will have to restart at a checkpoint or at the start of the level. So we may have save points where you can go kind of like Metroid and activate a save, and then it'll just save right there. Or it might just be save anywhere. And then if you die, the game's over and you got to restart at your last save point. So that affects the upgrades a bit in that all the upgrades are permanent, and then what you choose will stick with your ship. And if you want to choose a different path for upgrades, you would have to basically restart the game or get a new save slot. This is still under debate. We'll
We're
be
not even
trying out
sure,
some
yeah.
gravity.
There is gravity. Gravity exists throughout the entire universe. So yes, it exists. It may be that your ship and all the robots are made out of some sort of anti-gravity material. We don't know yet.
And particles and stuff like that, when they get gravity, it changes the feel of the game significantly. And I tend to like the feel of Descent 1 and 2 in terms of just everything is anti-gravity except for the hostages and the liquids. And it creates a different feel when you blow stuff up and it's sort of floating around. And I like that zero gravity feel, and that's sort of, it feeds into 6 Degrees of Freedom. But at the same time, it's not as realistic. So we'll still be trying some stuff like the settings that you go to throughout the game. Some of them should have more gravity than others. So we'll try out having some gravity on some of them. But that's not a commitment to having gravity or not having gravity. That's just, we'll be looking at it.
Yeah, I don't know what I think, although it would be trivial to add it and see what we think. But one slight advantage of having gravity is that it gives the player a sense of direction. If they kind of know which way is up, then it could probably help them navigate the level. The same is true of having flowing water. Flowing water tells you what direction gravity is, and also if the water is designed to flow in a rational way, you can follow the stream or whatever it would be to get to a certain point. It gives guidance to the player through the level. Puzzles?
I don't think we're going to be doing really puzzles with it, because we have tried putting asteroids and giant balls in the levels, and it just feels like you're kicking a big soccer ball around and
Kicking a rock down the hall.
yeah. it's kind of weird. Like it feels cool to do it, but there's not a lot of point to doing it, and I don't think we'll be having a lot of puzzles that are actually physics based, because the physics just come into like how everything feels and how the debris flows, and we'll look for any opportunities to do more physics based stuff, but it's not going to be integral to like figuring out and beating a level usually. We have not answered that, but Kevin Bentley said he has a track IR and he's interested in trying to get it in the game. So, maybe. So markers, like the Descent 3 markers where you could place a bunch, or were they in Descent 2?
I think they were in Descent 2. You could place markers in D2, right?
I don't remember.
We do have a long-lasting flare that you can upgrade to, which you can sort of stick to stuff. It's a sticky flare that you can use by holding down the button longer when you fire your flare. So that will definitely be in the game. As far as any other markers, I am not sure. Because we're trying to make the levels less confusing, and we'll have the auto map to help you, and the auto map will be better than D1 and D2's auto map.
Yeah, I think it's really tempting to, like, the level's not confusing because all you have to do is drop markers, and so then the level complexity can increase when you add a feature. I just had a great idea. We should have like this cable. You launch it, and then you go do what you want to do, and you press a button, and it pulls you all the way back. So you find the exit, you go blow up the reactor, you push a button, and you're gone. How about that? Now you can make it as complicated as you want. I don't care.
We got teleportation then.
You would think if
Maybe
we have
it'll be
enough
an
technology
upgrade.
that we could have mines
It'll be a
on,
cheat at least.
on moons of planets, that we could have ships that actually could figure out themselves how to fly to
Yeah,
things.
you know what? Yeah, I mean, we've got self-driving cars practically today, don't we? So
Yeah.
I forget what year we're
We'll just
setting.
have, you just push a button and it'll fly through a level, blow up all the robots, blow up the reactor, and
Oh, the wind button.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
but it's possible we might have an upgrade where you could blow up the reactor and then it'll give you markers towards the exit.
Yeah, that's kind
that
of
was a cheat code in Descent 1 or Descent 2, Flash. It put an energy power up in the center
energy
of each
power-ups,
segment.
yeah.
And energy power-ups cast a lot of light, so it over-brightened the entire level, or anywhere you would go by doing that. But yeah, it was a way to find the exit. with
Well,
a
lots
cheat code.
of open world games have those sorts of waypoints where you just push a button and it puts a bunch of markers or arrows. And Red Faction Guerrilla had those arrows to lead you to places.
Yeah,
And that was all 2D. I can do it in 3D.
yeah. I think that's
Anything's
synonymous
possible.
with saying, oops, we made this too hard, rather than
Yeah.
change it, we're giving you this crutch.
Our last two questions are art related, so we're bringing on our art lead, Chris Claflin, and our newly added second artist, Victor Duarte.
Hello, I'm Chris. That's Vic.
Hey.
Question. Oh, Vic is new. One of the questions was, who are the new people? Vic is our new people.
I'm the new guy.
Yeah.
We actually also recently added Kevin Bentley, who's a programmer on the project, who's handling the Mac and Linux versions primarily. So he's also sort of a new addition to the project.
Playership. We're gonna let the playership cook for a while. We've got some concepts for the interior and exterior of the ship. We've got a rough cockpit that we put in the game just for kind of just getting a feel for it. But we're gonna sort of let that thing grow and evolve throughout the project. So it might be a while before we show it off. But the idea is we're gonna build it from the inside out, really from the player's perspective out. And it's really important to me that the exterior look. It's tough because we definitely want to play fan service to the old Pyro, but we want this ship to look like it can maneuver the way that it maneuvers in the game. So it will have some different technology built into it. But yeah, as far as when you'll see it, it's going to be a little while, I think, which is cool because you'll be more excited when I show it. And maybe you won't hate it as much. I don't know. But yeah. Well, the style won't change because style's a style. but we will be developing a different set of textures and overall scheme for the different parts of the galaxy that we fly through in the game. I don't think we're ready to give away too many details, but our goal on the art side is to be able to express sort of the world of the game through visuals. So it will change throughout as the player progresses. Yeah, I think from start to finish it'll be uniquely Overload visually, which I think is pretty exciting.
We've been getting our basically our art pipeline set up. I'll be focused mostly on materials, at least up front, and 3D decals. So we've spent a lot of time talking about how we want to work together in Substance Designer and Unity and make sure we can get organized with all our files so that we're not stumbling over each other like we did this weekend with some
Yeah, a little snafu.
little snafu.
But yeah, Substance Designer is right now I think that's kind of our bread and butter. Procedural texturing and really getting the most out of that software is what we're focused on right now. And we made some pretty nice improvements to some of the assets we've already built, and we set ourselves up to do some really cool looking stuff in the future. So it's exciting. So I think that's it for this update. I think this is time to sign out. We're going to get back to making Overload. So thanks for your questions, and talk again soon.